Well, good morning to you, and welcome to another of our morning Bible studies. Today, I'm going to read to you a section of Matthew's Gospel, Matthew chapter 2, verses 13 to 18. It's quite a difficult passage, but let me read it to you to begin with. Verse 13. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said, "take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted, because they are no more." Quite a difficult reading this morning, and it comes to us really in two parts. The first part, we're told that an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph, telling him to take Mary and Jesus into Egypt. That wasn't for any cruise along the Nile. No, it was much more serious. Joseph was being told by God to take his family into Egypt because Herod wanted to kill the infant Jesus. Herod had already heard that Jesus had been hailed as the King of the Jews, and he felt threatened by such news, and he was intent on destroying that infant. And Joseph did as he was told by the angel, and under the cover of darkness, he took Mary and Jesus to Egypt, and they stayed there until King Herod had died. That's the first part of the story. The second part of this morning's story concerns something really quite evil. It's well known to us as the massacre of the infants. See, King Herod had been angered by the wise men who had, in his opinion, disobeyed him and tricked him. In fact, what they had done was to obey God's guidance. Herod's response was utterly disproportionate. Believing that Jesus was still in Bethlehem or in the vicinity of Bethlehem, he ordered that every boy aged 2 or under should be killed. In that way, he would be able to kill Jesus in the process. It was infanticide on an immense and truly horrific scale. So, what can we reflect on from this morning's story? I think the first thing we ought to pick out is the fact that Jesus is someone very, very special. He is indeed the truly divine Son of God. His birth had been announced by an angel sent by God. And before his birth, he'd already been recognized as the Son of the Most High. He'd been destined for great things, and Elizabeth knew that the unborn baby that Mary was carrying was no ordinary baby, that he was destined for great things. And even the humble shepherds on the hillside were led to the stable to see the infant Jesus. They knew that he was their Saviour, the Messiah, and the Lord. And to a certain extent, our passage this morning kind of reinforces that message that Jesus is indeed very special, and God watched over him like a protected father would. God offered divine guidance to Mary and to Joseph, those who were taking care of the precious infant child. and he sent an angelic messenger to Joseph, warning him of Herod's intentions. That same angel promised to let Joseph know when it was safe for the family to return. So perhaps the first thing we ought to recognize is that Jesus is the very special Son of God, born among us in human flesh, and whose life was always divinely inspired and divinely guided. I guess the second thing that comes through to us very clearly from this reading is that human beings are capable of doing some pretty atrocious things, some pretty atrocious acts of cruelty against one another, um, against other innocent and more defenseless people. Our history books are littered with examples of hideous cruelty that's occurred in this and other countries, indeed, in the past. And newspapers continue to carry stories even today of senseless cruelty that's ongoing in our world at a variety of different scales. And, we're left to reflect, aren't we? How can people be so unloving? How can they be so uncaring? How can they be so brutal and reckless? How can human lives be so cheap? Why are we unable to see the face of Christ in the face of the stranger? And it's those atrocious acts of cruelty and violence that pose very difficult questions to us as Christians. And the answers don't come easily, they don't come quickly, sometimes they don't come at all. And I'm sure, like me, you have asked the question many times, where is God when all this cruelty, there's so much pain, so much suffering in the world? Where is the Father who protected the infant Jesus at a time when we need him to protect the lives of innocent children and teenagers? The answers don't come easy, do they? And perhaps we ought to reflect too that so much of the wicked behavior that we see in the world around us is the result of human emotions which are unchecked, and we would do well to get rid of them, certainly from our own lives. You see, Herod's actions were fueled by his own insecurity, by his own fear. He may have been threatened by the loss of personal status and pride. He may have felt humiliation at the hands of the wise men, and he may even have been angry and vengeful. He needed to get to the root of what was threatening him, and he needed to deal with it quickly, decisively, obsessively, senselessly. And our challenge this week is to ponder very carefully on the emotions that drive our actions. What are our actions fueled by in relation to our family relationships, our relationships with our neighbours, our colleagues, our friends? What are the good emotions that we have? What are the not so good emotions that we have that perhaps we would be well to try and hold in check? And my final thought on this passage is this: that Joseph, Mary, and the child Jesus on their way to Egypt really need to be seen for what they truly were: a fearful refugee family who are escaping from a dangerous regime, threatened by so many things. Sadly, today's world still contains those families, people escaping from their homelands because they no longer feel able to protect themselves, where they cannot feed themselves, where they cannot clothe their children, where there is fear, where there is violence, where there exists a very real threat to their lives and their well-being. And, right on our doorstep, we have people, mainly women, seeking refuge for themselves and their children even today, seeking from protection, usually from very violent men. Let's consider these people compassionately, and in our time of prayer with God this week, let's bring them to his attention. Difficult reading this morning, a lot to reflect on. Thank you for being here with me. Tomorrow, let's hope we can have a slightly brighter story to share. Hope you can join me tomorrow, same place, same time. In the meantime, have a good day and God bless you all. Bye for now.